I was always, from as my youngest memory, I can think, like, I don't want to fail in life.
Yeah.
So I never felt, this is going to sound negative against myself, but this is just what I was telling myself from the get-go. I was thinking, like, I'm not very bright. Like, I don't excel in my mind. I don't excel physically. Like, I need every freaking chip that I can stack in my favor. So I'm just going to pay attention. I'm going to, be as clean as I can and work as hard as I can and just put one foot in front of the other.
What's going on, man? Welcome to the Darren Woodson show.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's unexpected for sure. Like, but very much appreciated.
Yeah. And you just got off a plane from where?
Minneapolis.
Minneapolis, okay.
And it is windy here.
Yeah.
Hey, you're not complaining about the wind.
No.
Me.
But I was just driving in my
you.
truck. I was literally watching rotation drop into the hood of my truck. And I'm like, I was driving here wondering if anyone has had a tornado form on them. Like when you start out in the twister. I think that's what's going to happen, because I'm watching the whole thing rotate. I'm like, my truck's going to be in the middle.
Here we go. Yeah, welcome to Texas.
Yeah.
I mean, y'all get the freezing up there in Minneapolis, but we get the wild. Because the wind rolled in right after you landed. Probably.
Yeah, and I noticed, so we were supposed to land at 10, and we didn't land until 10:20, and then the lady in front of me turned it on the screen where you can see the airplane coming, your flight tracker. And we had went past Dallas quite a ways and then came in. And so, I was imagining avoiding the storm.
If anybody knows storms, it's you.
I've been in a few.
Yeah.
I've been in a few in a tent.
Yeah. That's it. We'll get there.
But before we get there, that sexy voice you hear is not mine or Darren or Tyler's. It's Donnie Vincent, who is a filmmaker, biologist, explorer.
Yeah.
What else? Biologist. I mean, you do everything.
Yeah, I mean,
pretty much anything outdoors you do.
Yeah, I just want to be outside.
Yeah. So, and we're obviously going to get to quite a bit of that. But what we do on this show is we like to hear the journey. We want to know how you got to where you are today. And so what we typically do is take it all the way back to the beginning and understand where you're from, what your family dynamics were like.
Sure.
Kind of set up the story a little bit so that people just see you today, understand where you come from. So take us back there. Where were you born? Where are you from? Tell us about your family.
I was born in Hartford, Connecticut. I have a brother, a sister, and obviously parents. I grew up in an interesting household. Brother and sister are drug addicts. Quite possibly still. I'm not in a lot of contact with them. I talk to my brother a little bit. I don't talk to my sister at all. So I got to watch my parents were, they're great people. They were great parents. We all got kind of parented the same and made our own decisions. And I got to watch two train wrecks unfold in front of my eyes. And so
at what age was this?
I mean, they were, it's so embarrassing.
Youngest or
youngest? I'm the youngest.
Okay.
Yeah. My brother is probably 5-6 years older than I am. And my sister is 3 or 4 in front of him. So I was an oops. And so I got to watch their, their lives kind of unwind. And I'm sure I wasn't going to make the same decisions when I was growing up. Most of my friends were doing drugs and dabbling in having fun and being recreation. And I was always, from as my youngest memory, I can think, like, I don't want to fail in life.
Yeah.
So I never felt, this is going to sound negative against myself, but this is just what I was telling myself from the get-go. I was thinking, like, I'm not very bright. Like, I don't excel in my mind. I don't excel physically. Like, I need every freaking chip that I can stack in my favor. So I'm just going to pay attention. I'm going to, be as clean as I can and work as hard as I can and just put one foot in front of the other.
Isn't that wild, though, that you can be raised in the same scenario, and my family dynamic it's similar. I come from 5, and I have, very, very different paths from siblings, very different. And it's like, okay, we were in the same setting, same guidance, and then just choices were different.
Yeah.
And how you made a choice different. Now, probably it helped, well, not helped, but it guided you a different way when you saw, okay, when they're starting to make the wrong decisions, I know that's not the results that I want.
Yeah, for sure. I could see their friends. I could see little things even, right? The shortcomings, getting fired from jobs, the running out of money. Like I can just see, you can see 3 steps before the pitfall. It's like you're leading yourself into a pitfall, you know what I mean? And so it was a good example of what not to do. And yeah.
That's pretty good awareness, though.
It is.
I mean, it sounds like you said at a young age you knew you had to stack the deck because there were things
I remember
you were lacking.
this. My earliest memory of thinking I have to be ultra aware of my decisions and what I'm doing were probably 5th grade. Wow. 6th grade, something like that. Like I can just remember I'd see other kids in class, like he's smarter than I am. Yep. She's smarter than I am. Like when we go outside and we race, like I'm not the fastest dude. When we are lifting weights, I'm not the strongest guy. Like I got to find
your spot.
my niche.
Yeah. I've been there too. Same way. Like I looked at my life, same awareness, saw the drugs that were in the neighborhood, saw people going down a certain path. And I told myself at a very young age, I'm not going to do that.
Yeah.
I'm going to be different from that. So I just tried to find my strength. What was my strength? Tackling people. Shit, I can do that all day.
Yeah.
Like, that's one thing. I can't hit a pass ball, but damn, I can tackle you. So that's great. But going into your high school years, what was your high school years like? As far as, were you a smart kid? Were you a kid that?
No, I was in like remedial classes all through high school. Like I never had algebra, never had. I was always in some sort of reading group. I never took a second language. I mean, I skimmed through and gotten some trouble. I had gotten some trouble with. I can't handle bullying. So if I see somebody being bullied, it just drives me insane, and I want to. Which is bad. Then I want to bully the bully.
Right.
And so, which is,
No, I think that's justice. I think is what it's defined as.
Yeah. Well, I some teachers didn't see it.
No, they can't.
But what's funny is I got in a pretty bad situation my senior year, and I had to spend. I ended up having something like 50 days of in-school suspension. My senior year. Wow. So you come show up at the school and you go to a little room, little brick room, and the football coach was in there. Yeah. And all I could do was homework. Right? There's nothing else to do but my homework, and so I just started getting better grades and started kind of I was always doing my homework, but I was always distracted with being outside and things like that.
That things happen. You kick someone's ass because you didn't tell that side of the story, so you must have kicked somebody's ass.
Yep.
And then they put you in that. Put you in that situation, and then your grades picked up.
That's right.
Something special.
So you got to beat some ass, and you got better grades. Win-win all around.
So you mentioned though you wanted to be outside. You've mentioned in a lot of your videos and podcasts that you've done is outside from an early age. Like that was just where you were drawn.
Yeah.
So when did that start? Was that from your parents? Was that from your dad? Did you have?
I had a little bit. Like my dad was. I always tell people that I'm not from a hunting family. Like my dad didn't really hunt. I would see him hunt once a year, something like that. But my dad liked alcohol when I was a kid, and so I think going out and hunting with him was basically drinking with his buddies. And so, but he had a really cool I do believe 100% that it lives in our DNA to want to be hunters, gatherers, to be outside, right? And innately, even using skills like playing football, it's your body and mind wanting to be a hunter, a warrior. This is from our being in original tribes. And so, but my dad had a really great book collection that his parents bought him. He had an old walnut gun case. He had guns. He had some hunting equipment gear, like old jackets and stuff that I would feel and touch. And so where my mind wanted to go and the things that I, thought about and dreamed about, like I was finding in these books, right? So I didn't know exactly what I was going to do, but I could see like pictures of the mountains, pictures of an old man holding a big trout and like, rifles and deer, and he also had a lot of books on war. And so I'd look at all this stuff that was militarily, and look at all these, battle paintings and things like that. And so I don't know, I got a lot of inspiration from it.
Just immediately.
Immediately. And I was completely intoxicated, still am intoxicated with wildlife.
Yeah.
Completely intoxicated. Even when I'm around other hunters. I was just in Kansas. I was in Colorado yesterday. And I saw a rattlesnake on the road, and I pulled over, and I was with a friend of mine, and I'm checking this rattlesnake out, and the rattlesnake's all coiled up, and she's trying to strike me, and he's just looking at me from the truck like, what are you doing, dude? Moron. But I just couldn't. I didn't even want to leave her. Like it was a prairie rattler, and it was a big one, and she just looked so gorgeous, and I'm looking at her eyes and her pits and her face, and I'm looking at her tongue and her rattle, and it was just cool. It was, and he's like, we got to roll. Like, we got to go do other things.
You got to not die.
Yeah.
So.
But it's always been that way. Frogs, snakes,
Yeah,
trees.
I remember you mentioned a butterfly. A butterfly would stop you in your tracks.
Stop me in my tracks. Yeah.
Forgive my ignorance, but is Hartford, Connecticut, is there any outdoor presence there at all?
Not really, but it was, like in Connecticut, there's housing developments and then little woodlots, some farm fields, housing developments. And so I would just.
out there in Bristol. Yeah.
And I would just disappear. And I still, people write me all the time. They're like, I don't know if I can ever afford to go to Alaska. I'm like, you don't have to go to Alaska. Yeah. This lives in your head.
Yeah.
You can go on 10 acres of woods next to your house and find everything that you need. If somebody told me, hey, you have to hunt on this 10 acres next to your house or exist in this 10 acres the rest of your life, I'd be like, all right, I'm going to figure this 10 acres out.
Yeah.
I'm going to go find every bug, every bush, every snake, frog, bird, and it'll be enough.
And it's weird because I spent a lot of time in Hartford and in the Bristol area working at ESPN, and I've been in Dallas for 20 some years. It's different. It's a lot different as far as nature is concerned. But I saw deer on the campus.
Oh, yeah.
Geese on campus. Yeah. Coyotes. You see a little bit of everything, and it's wooded. There's a lot to it out there if you just explore.
If you pay attention.
Yeah.
And that's most people aren't even looking around. But
yeah. So in high school, you graduate. What was there a plan graduating high school? Or is it still just like, hey, I'm still figuring this out, out grades were better, but
grades were better. Still shooting from the hip. Ended up going because all my friends were going to college or some variety, and so I applied to a 2-year school. Went and got an associate's degree, and I was working. I had 2 jobs. I was working as a veterinary assistant in a vet clinic because I liked all the blood and guts too.
What was your associate's in? Was it just a general?
Yeah, they called it a bioscience.
Okay.
So I had some surgical classes. I had some anatomy and physiology, some easy mathematics, things like that. And then a friend of mine one day brought me a brochure for the University of Minnesota College of Natural Resources, and there was a moose on the cover of this.
I'm in.
Pamphlet. And so he brought it to me. He's like, check this out, and I looked, and I was like, man, I started looking at the class like mammalogy and ichthyology, which is study of fishes, and herpetology, and I was like, man, I could get into this, And I went to the school with the help of my friend because literally I would never do this, I don't think, on my own. I never would have walked to the university and walked in, but I was encouraged to do so, and so I did. And literally the administrator, she's like, looked at my high school grades, and she's like, not a chance. She literally looked at me, and she was really nice about it, but she's like, Donnie, turned her computer screen around. She's like, she's like, we're ranked 3rd in the country right now for natural resources. She's like, not a chance.
Right.
Not a chance. And I was like, okay, so what are we talking about? And she said, so she handed me she said, if you do this list of courses, and it was freshman English, I had to take pre-algebra 1, pre-algebra 2, geometry, trigonometry, pre-calc 1, pre-calc 2,
sounds awesome.
College algebra. I had to take a second language. She gave me 2 years of classes.
Right.
And she's like, go take these 2 years of classes. And she's like, come on back and reapply. So that's what I did.
And you ended up taking those classes?
Yep, went and took the 2 years of classes, and in a full-on panic, just, working like literally college algebra the first day, because I'd never even seen algebra in high school. Like solving for X was just like, give
me some shapes, I'll do
somebody
that.
put a letter in the friggin' equation.
It's a mistake here.
We have a numeric system.
This is a math class.
Somebody mixed the alphabet up. I was just like, mother Hubbard, and so then like started working through it and started kind of figuring it out, and went to the tutors as much as I had to. And
But why though? Like, why was that so important to you to get to do all this work just to get into a?
literally thought it was the only way to keep my head above water, right? Like without this, like I don't even know. I think about this now. I've thought about this multiple times. Like why it was never an option for me to swing a hammer or. Like my mind never went that route. Like I was just like, I have to get educated. I have to do something higher. And then I started to realize a little euphoria when I would learn. Like I'd learn an equation, it was like, this thing. I feel empowered with what I have in my head right now. Like I can solve this problem. I can solve for this. Like I could be an asset if somebody has. And that's how dumb I was. I'm like, if somebody has this as a problem, this exact problem, I can solve it. Like I wasn't a problem solver, but I was solving problems.
Right. So were you motivated? Like I'm getting to. Were you motivated from within to do what you wanted to do in life instead of just, like you said, swing a hammer? Yeah.
Like I wanted to be around animals.
Right.
I wanted to see wildlife. I wanted to help wildlife. Like if it was funny because I always wanted to basically apply for a job, like as a biologist, and be like, hey, I don't really mean this, but say, hey, I'm fearless. Like you can put me anywhere. Like if I have to swim with sharks, you need me to pick up rattlesnakes, like whatever you need me to do, like I can go and do it. I just, I don't know the science side. And so I just wanted to, line myself up as much as possible too.
Yeah. So it's funny. And here's a question. And then I'm going to lead into the question in a second. A lot of people go to college because they want to get a good job, because they want to make a good living. Sounds like for you, was it about quality of life? You just wanted to do what you loved, and you just had to have those certifications in order to do those things. Yeah. So it was about quality of life and not about income.
Yep. In fact, in my first class, there are things about academics now that I can't stand. Like as I became more and more educated and saw the hoops that college students jump through and the hoops that master's students jump through and PhD students, I was just like, man, this is kind of a game.
Yeah.
Like there are people that are really changing science. There are people that are really advancing as medical doctors. There are people that are really, building cities and all these things. I see the natural cream of the crop, but everyone else is just, we're a tuition payment.
Right.
And then I see like the professors, I could see like, okay, so your life sucked as an undergraduate. So now that you're a professor, this is just a little intellectual game for you to make our lives suck.
Right. Right.
And so
is that because of the experiences, like the personal experiences you had outside of the classroom, like the natural experiences, like you ran into whatever it is and you saw it visually with your own eyes?
100%. Yeah, 100%. And I just started to realize that this was a little bit of a game. And so like I wanted to advance myself. I wanted to do the work to be around wildlife, but I wasn't chasing dollars, right? I wasn't chasing an income. But then as I would go through and see all these things, I was just like, man, like because originally I'm like, maybe I can if I can get an undergraduate, maybe I can get a master's, and then maybe I can get a PhD. But once I was done with my undergraduate, I was like, no, now I want to do things.
Right. Yeah.
On my own.
Yeah. Yeah. Cause again, and that we've had this conversation about college, right? It's like, okay, we're literally going through 4, 5, 7 years of school just to get a piece of paper. And then you've got to learn actually how to do what you're trying to do. Right? There's no carryover.
Yeah. And now like I have tons of people, maybe the number one thing that people write me is, how do I get to do what you're doing? Or how do I get to do my version of what you're doing? Whether that be football or whatever, architecture. And normally like the younger version of myself would be like, oh, you got to go to college. You got to buckle down. You have to work hard. And now I think, well, if you don't want to go to college, don't go to college. Like, you should educate yourself for sure. You should definitely try to develop your finest skill at problem solving, whatever that problem may be. All of them, from mathematics all the way up to fixing your kitchen sink. Like, you should try to dive into these things because you're going to diversify your mind. You're going to educate yourself. And what you're really going to find is what you want to do.
Yeah.
Because right now I see all these people that are coming at me, that write me these letters and they're like, so if I get a wildlife degree and then I get a film degree, can I do what you're doing? No. To do what I'm doing, you have to risk every penny you're ever going to make and throw it at the wall and hope that something's going to come of it. Right? Like, hope that somebody's going to buy your work. Like, essentially, when we started making films, like, I had to paint a painting and then sell it. So if nobody buys the painting,
and it's ground zero.
Back to the drawing board, right?
Yeah.
And there's no, I own my own company, and so no one was paying me to do the painting. Like, I met a group of gentlemen who were super, super talented. I wish they could be here doing this, but they fly in tomorrow. But, I met those guys and I recognized the recipe. So I met our director at Sick Manta. His name's Kyle Nicolai. He's a huge fan of yours, by the way. But I met him, and
for those who are listening, he pointed at Ben.
I was going to say, I appreciate that. Have him reach out to me. Yeah, we'll get set up.
And so he, I met him through a series, and we'll probably maybe get to this in the story, but I met him, and he's a gifted storyteller, filmmaker. So I thought, okay, so whoever I am in real life, I can work with him to develop a style. And to actually tell the story. Like, I can tell the story, but I can't put it into a visual piece to actually bring people along. I can do it if I have a photograph. If we sat in here and you guys put 10 photographs up and said, all right, tell us about this photograph, I can tell you a story about it because I remember every little detail and I feel every little detail, so I can tell you the story. But to see it in motion pictures, I don't know how to do that.
Right. Yeah.
So I met Kyle, and at the same time I met our director of photography, William Altman, and he's a very gifted photographer, videographer. He just shoots beautifully. And so I thought, okay, so if he shoots it, I tell it, and then Kyle puts it into a movie form. And then on the side, we had a musician that we were working with that in between gigs, he would help us score music. I thought, all right, now we can bake a cake.
That's a team.
Now we can build a team. We can bake a cake, and maybe somebody will buy the freaking cake. And then if we sell this cake, we can buy other ingredients and so that's kind of how it got to. And so when people write and they're like, hey, what should I do, or this is what I want to do, I just tell them, I mean, if college is your thing, if you want it, there's no way to be a medical doctor without going to medical school. It's illegal. I mean, you might be able to pull it off, but it's not going to be for very long, even if you're really good at it. And I have one friend who is an unbelievable lawyer, but he's never went to law school. He's never taken the bar, but he is.
Is his name Mike Ross?
No.
From the show Suits?
No.
That's literally the story. That's that show. It's about this guy who literally never went to school. He's a genius.
Became a lawyer.
Illegally.
Yeah. And this guy, I don't want to say his name because he's very private, but he is, I mean, we can talk about him later, but he is, he owns multiple law firms, multiple, and he's never been to law school, never taken the bar exam, and he's incredible. But he's the, the 100%.
Right.
Yeah. Like, you can't be like, I want to do what that guy does. Be like, well, he's Michael Jordan.
You just weren't born with it. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But that's a great point, is that, for those maybe that are in college or about to get into college that are listening, I mean, to be intelligent doesn't mean you have to have a degree. To be successful doesn't mean you have to have that. Now, again, like you said, there's certain things that, okay, hey, this is the path that I do have to take. I'm really passionate about being an attorney, or I'm really passionate about being a doctor, or, getting into education, right? There's certain things that it calls for. Like my wife, we were talking the other day, and it's funny you said what the advice that you gave. You got to risk it all. She's always wanted to be a nurse, right? And we were talking to my oldest daughter. We took her to dinner last night, and my wife was like, "Oh, well, what do you want to be when you grow up?" And my daughter's like, "I don't really know yet." She goes, "It's fine." And then she asked my wife, and my wife was like, "Oh, if I could be anything right now, I'd be a nurse. I would do anything to be a nurse." And I looked at her, I go, "Would you go to school?" She goes, "No." I was like, "So you wouldn't do it?" You don't do that. So, but your point is what are you willing to do for your dream? What are you willing to do to accomplish it? Yeah. Because in order to, and I believe that this is something that you said, this was in Comfort Crisis. Michael Easter was talking about it. Said like one of you, I think it was your favorite quote is, everything is so much more enjoyable the harder it is to achieve it. Yeah. And I'm paraphrasing, but something along those lines, like the harder you work for it, the more rewarding it is when you get it. Yeah. And that's the truth, is if you are risking everything to get to your dream, what you're passionate about, I mean, it's so rewarding when you get to the other side. The hard part is figuring out what that dream is.
And that's the thing. That's what I tell people is get diverse examples of work and inspirations. Like go do a bunch of things. Travel if you have to, or go work as maybe go work as a carpenter one summer, then go work as a fisherman one summer, and then try to get an internship under a medical doctor or a lawyer or whatever. Like just go, and especially if you don't know, if you don't know what you want to do, because if you find exactly what you want to do, and a lot of people say this too, like if you find exactly what you want to do and you are truly passionate about it, people will pick up on that. You don't have to tell them how passionate you are. Yeah. People tell me, guys will write me and they'll be like, "I'm addicted to hunting. It's all I think about. How do I get a job in the hunting industry?" No one cares that you're addicted to hunting. Yeah. No one cares that it's all you think about. Do something that kind of illustrates that you're addicted to hunting. And you're not really addicted to hunting, I don't think. Although I maybe know some guys that are, but that's short-sighted, right? There's something bigger than that, you know? Like I don't know. It's just, there's a reason you want to be a hunter. There's a reason maybe you want to be a football player. Whatever it is that you're doing, like you're going to find the vein that is the skeletal system of what you're kind of focusing on, and then it's going to be infectious. Right. People literally, you'll be at a party and somebody will grab your shirt and drag you over to another, be like, tell them about the car you built. Tell them about that car you built. Yeah. You know, and some guys not, if you're amazing at restoring cars or building cars or engineering cars, you're not going to get anywhere by writing somebody saying, "Hey, I'm addicted to cars. What can I do?" No, it's going to be at a party or somewhere, and somebody will be like, hey, Darren, come here. Tell them about that Chevelle you did. Tell them what you did. And then you're going to tell, and then some other guy's going to be in the room and be like, I own a space company, and I know it's not a car, but I really could use the way you thought about that car. I need somebody to think about spaceships that way. Yeah. And then in 10 years, you're like, I build rockets, and somebody's like, "How do you get to do that?" I'd be like, "Yeah, I don't know. I met a guy at a party." But really, those inspirations, those hard line, the things that are really keep you awake at night will lead to what, I didn't want to be a filmmaker. I didn't want to make movies. I don't even freaking know how to use cameras. Yeah. Like I know what's pretty. Yeah. I know the things that I want to see.
But why? Because you've experienced it and you've seen it and
I've
you've been there.
And I see things that stop me in my tracks. Like I'll be walking through a prairie landscape and I just saw something the other day I'd never seen before. Again, in Colorado, I got stung by a bee. And when I got stung by a bee, it made me start paying attention. And I noticed, and I don't know the species, I have to look it up, but I noticed I was surrounded by thousands of honeybees. And they all had burrows into the ground. Where I was in Colorado, there was 0 trees where I was. It literally is right on the Kansas border. It's flat as a pancake. There's some cottonwood trees in the river bottom, but the beehive was under the ground. And I know there's a lot of bees that burrow under the ground, but I'd never seen honeybees burrow under the ground. Usually honeybees live in a wall or a tree, or they're building a hive and something, like everyone's watched Winnie the Pooh.
You sure you didn't get bit by a bee that was pollinating on a mushroom or something? And
maybe, and I just saw holes in the ground. So it was gnarly, but it stopped me in my tracks. And the other two guys I were with, they kind of like scooted along because they didn't want to be stung. But I was like, oh, this is fascinating, when I got down. But it's just that, right?
Yeah.
Like, I'm not an entomologist. I don't want to be an entomologist, but those bees right then, like, yeah.
So let's go back, because you talked about experiences and experiencing things in your life. So you graduate from, you move on from college, or you go 2 years. How many years you go in college?
So I did the 2-year associates. I did the 2 years to get into the degree, and then I did 4 years to get my degree.
Okay, so you end up getting
4, 6, 7, 8.
So you end up
I should have
getting.
two
Thank you for
medical
doing
degrees.
that. Thanks for doing that for Darren.
Wow.
A lot of people go to school for 8 years. They're called doctors.
Jade, you will not go to school for 8 years.
I was the only one crying during Tommy Boy. Oh, he's talking about me.
He's talking about me.
So what was the experience? You get out of school. What was the experience? What was your first experience? Did you take a job somewhere, or did you instantly go into?
No, I did. This is kind of crazy, but at the end of my degree, like when people are going to the College of Natural Resources, they go to this place called Douglas Lake in Michigan, and it's kind of a techniques course. You radio collar and like you trap animals, you put radio collars on them, and you go out and triangulate them. You are doing vegetation studies, kind of taking your book work and dumping it into
Practical
physical application, so that if you go get a job at the Dallas Fish and Game or whatever, you can actually say, hey, I've done vegetative studies, I've done some radio telemetry, things like that. So we were at this course, and every year the University of Michigan would radio collar multiple raccoons. And then the University of Minnesota, University of Michigan, they'd study the movements of these raccoons, which is hilarious because sometimes you'd literally triangulate them in a dumpster. Like, there's Philip right there. He's, hey, I see you eating pizza. And so, like, we do all this stuff. Well, at the end of the year, at the end of the summer, the University of Michigan captures the raccoons, and then the University of Minnesota is tasked with catching the raccoons to get the collars back. Okay, so if we don't get the raccoon, we don't get the collar back, the collar just falls off after a time, right? It has a piece of bio in it that rots.
Right.
So it just rots away and then eventually falls off the raccoon. But I was working under a professor named Dr. David Smith. He's a tiger ecologist, studies tigers all over the world. And so he basically orchestrated me and another guy, and he goes, hey, every collar that we get back, I get to kind of rub it in the nose of the Michigan professor.
So like healthy rivalry there.
Yeah. So he's like, you two, me and another guy that I went to school with, he's like, you two take first crack at catching the raccoons. I was like, all right. So we have to go out at night, triangulate them, and then set traps of what we think they're going to do, and then try to capture them. So we went out, and I think they've only caught one. Like one of the 3 or 4 has only been caught ever.
Wow.
Right? The other one's just the collar swallow. So, but we went out one night, we triangulated these things, found them. They were in the forest. They're doing raccoon things, but we set traps for them, and we ended up catching all of them in one night. So we caught them all. We caught them all in one night. There's 3. There's 3.
Okay.
We caught 5 raccoons in one night. All 3 were and we got the 3 radio collared ones.
Wow.
So
that's awesome.
The tiger ecologist, we were at like kind of an after party. We were all getting ready to be done for the end of the summer. And he's like, hey, I'm going over to Bangladesh and Nepal to study tigers this summer. Do you want to go with me? I was like, yep.
Yes, I do.
Yep.
Hell to the no.
Yep. So that was my first experience. I went to
because you caught raccoons.
Kind of, yeah. I mean, again, it's one of those
this
things.
Can't be that hard.
At a party.
Yeah.
This cannot be
got
that hard.
one. So, and it's really funny. This guy is like Indiana Jones. He was in his 70s. He's a bad dude.
You got to go finish this story.
Yeah.
So you go.
So I go into the dining hall in the morning, and he's gray, and he's got his reading glasses on. The guy's always working. Like literally, it's been published a million times. So he's working, and I walk in the morning, and he looks up and he looks like Santa Claus, right? His glasses are on it. And he goes, how'd we do? I go, yeah. I go, how many were radio collared? And he goes, 3. And I go, yeah. And he goes, you caught all 3? And I go, yep. And he goes, well, he swore. He's like, mother. Oh, no.
Yeah. Oh, you can swear on.
Yeah, he's like, motherfucker.
Right.
He's like, are you kidding me? And I was like, yeah, caught all. Yeah. And he's like, oh. And he was just pumped. Yep. So then he offered me a job. I mean, I wasn't paid. I just went for the experience, but to study tigers
in Bangladesh.
Bangladesh. Okay, then let's go down to Bangladesh.
That's a scary ass place.
Real quick, up to this point, how much hunting and tracking and trapping had you done?
Oh, almost none.
Okay,
like
so you hadn't gotten really into hunting at this point yet. Okay.
I've just spent as much time as possible
outside,
with catching fish, catching snakes, like. Again, just absolutely absorbed with. I mean, like I remember. I feel like I need to self-edit some of these stories, but I remember I met girls when I was growing up, and they wanted to hang out, and I'd be like, "Yeah, I'm going to basically kind of roll logs over. You want to go see what's under the logs?
Want to join?
No.
Okay.
All right, I'll go by myself again.
Don't talk fresh to me, sir.
Let's go find some rattlesnakes.
Rolling logs. What does that really mean?
Yeah, metaphorically. So yeah, Bangladesh is gnarly. It is, and again, this guy that I was researching with, literally. So one day when we're in Michigan, he takes his shirt off. This guy, and he's got holes in his abs. Like it looks like one of us has sewn up his. From a surgery. It's so bad. And I asked him, I was like, what happened? He's like, I got gored by a rhino. I was like, oh, okay. And he literally was walking to the jungle one day with his son, and an Asian rhino attacked him and his son. He threw his son into a tree, and the rhino gored him, and he played dead. When he was done, he picked up all of his guts, because his guts were out. He picked up all of his guts, grabbed his kid, and then went back to the village. They flew him that was in Nepal. They tried to do work on him in Nepal, and his wife is a famous ornithologist, and she flew in to see him, and she's like, he looked like hell, and so she had him flown from Kathmandu, I think, to Bangkok, and then they redid a surgery in Bangkok and like fixed him. But he's a gnarly dude. Because he's like been gored by a rhino. He's like, yeah, I got gored by a rhino.
It's just that simple, like that.
I had to pick up my guts, and
you had to pick up.
So that's officially the gnarliest story we've ever heard on this podcast.
I'm done. Like I quit. There's no way.
He's incredible, and we would be going through. We flew into so he was going before me. So I go into his office, and I said, okay, Dave. This is all going to sound like lies, but everything I'm telling you is true. So I go into the office, and I'm like, so where do I meet you? How do I get there? And he's like, okay, yeah, great question. So he takes out a piece of notebook paper. He's like, you're going to fly from Minneapolis to, I'm trying to think of where I flew now. I flew from Minneapolis to Tokyo to Bangkok to a place called Jashur in Bangladesh, and then from Jashur to a place called Dhaka. I think it's the capital. He's like, when you get done with Dhaka, he's like, you're gonna take a cab down to this town, and he's like, and then I went from Dhaka. I'm sorry, I flew into Dhaka, then I went from Dhaka to Jashur. So he's like, in Jashur, I'll find you.
I'll find you.
I'll find you. So I was like, okay. So I flew from Minneapolis to Tokyo. I was in Tokyo for just a couple of hours, flew to Bangkok. I overnighted in Bangkok, which was just gnarly, just all the people and just everything. It was insane. And I got to my hotel at like 3:00 in the morning, slept for a couple of hours. The next morning, flew to Dhaka. Getting off the airplane in Dhaka, I was like, well, first of all, I talked to his wife before I left. And her name is Francie Cuthbert. And I talked to her, and I was like, so Francie, what's Bangladesh like? And she said, well, no one goes there on vacation. I was like,
that's not a good tagline.
Yeah. She's like, no one would travel there unless they're doing something in the militarily or doing research. No one would go there. I was like, oh, okay. And I get off the airplane, and I see like I mean, it was a bad dream. It was machine guns. Everyone had a machine gun, tons of screaming. Just felt like I was in a horrible, horrible movie. Right, getting off the airplane, you know, and I was like, everyone that was holding machine guns seemed really pissed off, and everyone that was getting off the airplane, if they weren't like the Bangladeshis, just seemed to like go about their business, but like, you know, and I was only white guy in the airplane, like by times 10.
So it's gonna be easy to find.
I was the only white guy in the airport times 10.
You're like, oh, this is how
easy to find you.
This is how I'll find you.
That's hell.
So I went up to the security guard, and he had an AK, and he's screaming at me, and so I didn't kind of negotiate my way through security because they didn't want to let me in the country at all. And so then my professor says, you go from this airport. He goes, you'll see these big gates, and there'll be these towers with machine guns. He's like, go through the gate, walk over to the domestic airport. You're in the international airport. You got to walk to the domestic airport, and then you take a domestic flight down to Jashore. And I was like, okay. So I start walking through these gates, and one of the security guards is like, hey, where are you going? I'm like, I'm walking to the domestic airport. He's like, they'll kill you. You go out this gate, they'll shoot you dead. And I was like, okay, so how do I get there? He's like, you have to get in a car, and then the car will drive you around. I'm like, okay, I'll do that. So I go over to the car. Again, this is all true. And there's a guy in a cab, and I can't even get him to give me eye contact. Like, he's sitting at the car. He's Bangladeshi, and I'm, excuse me, and he's just like, will not even look out his window. Security guard comes over. He's like, is there a problem? I go, he's not responding to me. Security guard goes over, or policeman, whatever, goes over to the cab, smashes the cab driver in the head with his elbow, maybe 2 or 3 times, maybe twice. Boom, boom. Guy's bleeding from the temple, and he's like, he'll take you now. And I got in the back seat, and the dude drove me to the airport and didn't even collect any fare, and I got out, and I was like, how much? And he just drove off.
Oh.
Damn, Donnie.
Yeah. Was it, I mean, do you think it was just because you were a white guy,
Donnie.
you were an American? Do you think, or is just...
I don't know. I don't think it had anything to do with my skin color. I mean, everyone there, I mean, literally, it was a sea of eyes going, you know, because I don't even know if some of them have seen, you know, a white guy, you know, and and then I went and got in the domestic, and you're getting on the airplane, you're like, this thing's not taking off.
No.
Right.
Like, there's no freaking way. Like, you come from an airplane in the United States, in Japan, in Bangkok, like, everything is pretty good. No one waits in line other than Americans. We're the only ones that go orderly fashion, but all the airplanes are, this is fine. You know?
And at no time do you ever think, I need to turn back? Like,
I didn't. No, I'm going. Like,
maybe.
I'm freaking going.
How old were you at this point again? 20?
Yeah, in my 20s.
Yeah.
In my 20s. And then I fly to Jashore. And then I take a car down to this area that he told me, like, this region to be in. And I get there, and it's like 1:30 in the morning. This guy comes over to me again. This is a true story. Guy comes over to me on a rickshaw.
Motorcycle or what is it?
Like a 3-wheeled bike. And he's gonna pedal me, and he goes, "Yeah, where can I take you?" And I was like, "No, I'm waiting right here. I'm supposed to wait right here." He's like, "No, you can't." He's like, late at night. He's like, "Where you need to go?" I was like, "No." And he's like, "Are you in a hotel?" And I didn't even know if there was a hotel. And I said, "No, I don't know. I'm just meeting a guy here." So he rode off, and he came back two more times and asked me again, like, "Where can I take you?" So I'm just sitting there, like, 2:00 in the morning. I'm like, this is, I don't even know what's going on right now. And I'm exhausted, right? Because I've been traveling for a few days. And all of a sudden, here comes a Land Cruiser. And there's
at 2 in the morning.
Yep. There's a driver. There's my professor and some other Bangladeshi biologists. And I was like, man alive. So they picked me up. And then I go, yeah, I'm so excited to see you guys. Like, this is unbelievable, And I was like, yeah, that guy with the rickshaw over there, like, I could still see him. And I was like, yeah, he came 2 or 3 times. And the driver's like, oh, he was going to murder you. Like, he's like, yeah, those guys they're all thieves. And he's like, so if you would have gotten in the rickshaw, he's like, basically, just ride behind the buildings over here. He rings a bell. Guys jump out, stab you to death. And he's like, they take your bag. He's like, you have more money in your bag right now in gear than they can make in the next, 10 years. He's like, they were going to murder you.
Hey, did you happen to ask the professor, why didn't you tell me, half of this shit?
See, and it was all, he gave me a half a piece of paper. And it was funny because I went and bought and I feel like I might be embellishing this a little bit, but I went and bought a book on Bangladesh, on traveling in Bangladesh. And basically in the book it said, don't take a bus, try not to fly, don't get in cabs. Like, it's basically like, don't travel in Bangladesh.
I was like, just don't
go here. Don't do this.
Shortest book ever.
Yeah, because there's a ton of kidnapping there.
Yeah.
So I was just like, man, alive. They kidnap. That's one of the things they do is they kidnap you for ransom, and if there's no ransom, they just like anyone that's kidnapped is getting killed. Like, there's no light at the other side. So after that,
So tigers were nothing.
yeah, tigers. I
Compared
mean,
to
once
this.
we got into the jungle, then it was
You were
great.
safe.
Yeah.
It was great. Yeah, it was in the city. That's
That's incredible.
So that was my first.
But I want like when you got us there. Now I even want to know. Like I've always been thrilled about, specifically about animals that
can kill you.
Can kill you.
Oh yeah.
Hey, now you're in the jungle.
Yes.
What is your goal? What are you there for?
So, and I'll tell you right off the bat because everyone asks me, and everyone's always super disappointed. But I never even saw a tiger.
Oh, bummer.
But I was a few times I was basically like in this room with a tiger, but I couldn't see them because the jungle was too thick. So we could see where they had stepped. And when they would step, this is a place called the Sunderbans. It's the world's largest mangrove swamp. Mm-hmm. So it's a series of islands and channels. And when a tiger would step, their prints, they call pog marks, would fill with water. Mm-hmm. So a few times we were in the jungle moving around, we'd find a pog mark that was just dimpling with water. The water was just starting. So it's within like 30 seconds, 20 seconds, something like that. So he's right here, but it's just too thick to see him. Yeah,
it's dense.
Good night.
Dense. Like it's a wall, a physical wall. Plus you can't go like there's saltwater crocodiles and bull sharks and cobras.
Not
and
gators, crocodiles. The
crocodiles. Oh yeah, they'll eat
ones.
you. Like I was washing my feet one day because we did everything from a boat. We lived on a boat. We lived on a boat that would sink. Every day we would have to bail this big boat out that we lived on.
Dude, I'm like,
Dude, you won't even stay in a La Quinta, much less a boat.
You see me? I'm squirming over here, man.
And then we would get on these little things that looked like gondolas, and we would drive down all these canals. And basically, every time a tiger would cross the canal, that was an event, right? Not seeing the tiger, but the tracks. Mm-hmm. So that would be an event. And then you see, okay, there's another event. And basically, we're using all of these crossings to come up with some idea of what the population we think might be in this area of the Sunderbans. They're trying to map out, because the tigers are hunted still, they're poached, and so like they're super endangered. There's more people, a lot of people know this statistic, but there's more tigers in captivity in Texas than live in the wild.
Hey guys, want to take a quick break from part one of our two-part conversation with Donnie Vincent and thank our sponsor, Choctaw Casino and Resort. We've been talking about it for months now. The brand new expansion is here. Go check that out. Also wanted to remind you guys that coming up this weekend on the 27th and the 28th, on the 27th, you got Carrie Underwood with the Swan Brothers performing. And then on the 28th, you got the hilarious Gabriel Iglesias performing there on the 28th. So go to Choctaw Casino and Resort website, book your tickets, go up there, check out the new expansion. Now back to our episode.
So are there, in this area, what's the population, like the human population out where you're?
Oh, zero.
Zero, okay.
Zero.
Okay.
There's and people are like, there's little villages here and there, but I mean, negligible, right? There's honey collectors, guys that literally run through the jungle following honeybees back to the hive, and then they steal all the honey from the bees, and they go back to the market and sell it. Then there's palm cutters. They go and cut these huge palm leaves, and because that's what they thatch their roofs with. So they'll go cut all these things, then they go back to the town and they sell them to people. And then there's fishermen that are there catching fish for the market, for food. And those are the three types of people that are basically taken all the time by tigers.
I was going to say, and that was going to be
they're killed all the time.
Actually killed from
all the
tigers.
time. Yeah, tigers are taking these people, especially the honey collectors, the guys that run through the woods or run through the jungle following the bees. Like, they get taken all the time.
That's wild.
Yep.
Absolutely insane.
Yep.
So how long were you out studying on this particular trip?
I think we were in Bangladesh for a month. or slightly longer, and then we went to Nepal after that.
Okay.
So
And tigers there as well.
tigers in Nepal as well.
Okay.
Totally different experience. In Bangladesh, we were in the swamps working from boats, and believe it or not, we worked on the backs of elephants every day in Nepal. So, but the reason I made that face is when
You were not lying, Indiana Jones. That's like real life Indiana Jones.
Indiana
stuff.
Jones. And so like I got to my cabin late at night. We flew into Kathmandu, and then we drove down to the Royal Chitwan National Forest. But when I got to my cabin late at night, there was this is one of those things where you just feel like a moron. But there's all these stairs going up next to my cabin, and there was a platform, looked like a deck, and I was like, oh, I wonder what they're building. It's clearly not done. I wonder what they're building. But that's how I would get on my elephant every day. It was an elephant platform to... Yeah, so the elephants didn't have to kneel down every time. I would literally go up the stairs and just get on the elephant. I had a driver, and then we had a bunch of tigers that were already radio collared, and then we would just follow them around in the jungle because the grass is like as tall as this ceiling in here. So if we walked around, the tigers would just kill you.
Yeah.
Oh, damn. So
what are the up above them?
What are the tigers hunting? Like everything, anything, or what
their
is it?
biggest thing was spotted deer, axis deer. Like you guys have them in Texas here in exotics, but spotted
south,
deer they eat a lot, and then they would take like in Nepal there are a lot more people than in Bangladesh, and so like like one of the villages I got to, there's these like 5 little Nepalese kids running through the jungle, playing like any of our kids would be playing, and I'm just like. And alive, they look like little McNuggets running around.
Yeah, literally.
And the parents, parents are paying attention, but still, like the kids get taken, the adults get taken. Like,
wow,
we're scared to have our kid play even 5 feet from the street.
I know.
These kids running around with tigers.
And
they're amazing. Like the tigers were amazing. They are man eaters there.
Did you see them in Nepal?
Nope.
Did not see any in Nepal.
Could see them on the computer, but. Could see
because
their
the grass
blips,
and all
but
that.
the grass is just too.
Okay, so and this is naive, but Nepal, right? You've got Everest, and then you've got jungle.
Yep.
Too.
So Everest up north, and then the Royal Chitwan National Forest is in the south. And as the story goes, like they call it Death Valley, essentially. And in the early days, when they'd have a prisoner that they wanted to put to death, they would literally take them down there and just release them, like.
Save
You're
yourself.
free.
Go.
Yep.
So
You're not making it out.
So was the travel book on that area the same as Bangladesh?
Kind of. The big caution there was malaria. Like malaria was pretty prolific. So you have the mosquitoes that you're dealing with, and same with in Bangladesh. Like the malaria, Bangladesh was like literally everything is trying to kill you. Everything, including some of the people. They're pretty fired up.
So you do this study excursion. Is this your first long-term travel?
And it wasn't even long-term, right? It was more like a summer internship, if you will.
Okay. Yeah. But like 30 days out essentially in the wilderness doing stuff. So was that what kind of gave you the bug? Like I could do this. Like I could be out, maybe not obviously doing this, but I get to do what I love and be outside.
Yeah. I mean, already I was feeling like, and I already knew, I knew that I could do it. And my first job after that was in Alaska for the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. Yeah. And one of the things they wanted to know was, like, I didn't, they're not looking at my grades. Like, oh yeah, I see you really excelled here. Like, oh, I see. They literally sat me down and like, if we dump you off in the middle of nowhere for 5 months, are we gonna have to come pick you up? No.
You know what? Basically.
I'll be fine.
You know what? How hard is it to find someone like that? Like there's got to be a book to say, hey, look, we got to find the craziest motherfucker ever and figure out
we found
willing. If he's actually willing.
And it was awesome.
Hey, did he go to school? Don't care.
Don't give
care. Is he crazy?
He went
it kind of was like that.
He went to Bangladesh. He went to Nepal. This motherfucker, we can get him. He'll do it.
Kind of what it was like.
Yeah.
And it was, and at first I was like, I was nervous. I'll be honest with you. Like I walked in to the office the first day. We were in town before we went out to the bush, and like, all the other biologists were, lack of a better term, like alpha males, like basically Navy SEAL version of, and actually one of them was a Navy SEAL, but Navy SEAL version of biology. These guys are like, we fix boat motors, we get stranded, we some of us drown, some of us die in airplane crashes, like some of us get mauled by bears, like, and there was no, like there's zero help. Like, you know, when I met these guys, it wasn't like, oh, you're the new guy. Yeah, let me show you around. No, it was like throw you in the fire and then see what you've got. And then afterwards, they're like, oh yeah, you know, you can come back. You can hang out. We'll go fly fishing with you or hunting.
Yeah, we got to make sure you're going to be around.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, these guys were like, I mean, instantly just riding you instantly.
Yeah.
Like you're
Sounds like a locker room.
Yeah. But it was
So you go to Alaska, and what was your first excursion study there?
Salmon, studying salmon for the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, doing it's called fecundity. Basically, salmon would return to their natal streams, and then seeing how well they were doing in a system.
Got it.
Counting them, speciating them, aging them, and then taking genetic.
How are you counting? Like, you obviously you're in a river, right?
Yep.
But there's hundreds, if not thousands, of them, right?
Yep.
So how are you actually counting?
You literally have a keyboard in front of you with all the different species on it, and literally everyone takes a shift, and you work the entire day when the sun is up. So literally you're working till midnight every night, and you're starting
so far north,
and you're starting your day at like 5 a.m. Because you can't restrict the fish. Right. So at night, you're not letting them through because the whole river's blocked off.
Okay.
Like we are stopping. The fish cannot make it up the river. They have to go through these little channels, these little gates. So you're literally sitting over the keyboard of species and you're like, there's a king, there's a chum, there's a sockeye, silver, a king. Yeah.
And you're seeing them from
Literally just
from depth, feet,
literally
really.
right there. They're swimming, and it's crystal clear water, swimming right between your legs, essentially. And the species come back kind of at different times.
Okay.
So the kings come first. So, but you have to, you know, you're being aware though, right? Because you're sitting there going king, 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 king. Holy shit! A sockeye just swam through, like sockeye, and like, you know, and you're speciating these things, but way more what you're doing than speciating is collecting samples. So you're letting a certain percentage through, and the other percentage you're actually jumping in the river with them, catching them, taking samples of them, length, measurements, everything, and then letting them go again.
Got it.
Yeah.
And so how long were you up there doing that?
Literally, I'd fly up to Alaska in beginning of June, and I'd fly home in October.
Okay.
Yep. And most of that time, I stayed in a 2-person North Face tent. Literally, you know, it's like a little yellow gumdrop.
Is that the first time you experienced the weather?
Yeah, I mean, yes. Like it was more so not so much the weather, it was the bugs.
Yeah.
It was mosquitoes.
Summer up there.
Yeah, it was. I mean, literally, you literally have to run around when you pee. Or, I mean, if you stop to pee, you'll have hundreds of mosquitoes on your penis. Hundreds. I mean, depending on your penis, I guess it could be thousands.
Yeah, that's true.
For Darren, it'd be teens.
You're teens. How many mosquitoes you have? Yeah. So when you're in your tent and it's not raining, it sounds like it's raining because they're trying to get in.
No way.
Yeah.
Wild.
Drives you, if you wanted to, literally drive you nuts.
You would think that with the free, I mean, as cold it is,
No,
as it
it's like
is.
100 degrees in the summer.
Yeah.
Out on the tundra where I was, it's super hot in the summer. Only the coast, like coastal Alaska is really nice. In the summer, it's 50 degrees, and in the wintertime, it's 35, 40 degrees. There's very little shift. But interior Alaska, negative 50 in the winter and 100 degrees in the summer. Massive swings. Yeah.
Gosh. Okay, so I'll call it off season. So you're up there in Alaska. You come home.
Yep.
What's it like when you're at home? Are you getting into?
I would work in cardiovascular surgery. I'd work in. I worked in a not surgery. I worked in a cardiovascular catheter lab. So I assisted doctors in doing angiograms, angioplasties, electrophysiology studies, things like that.
Okay.
I knew you the Dos Equis, man. The most interesting man in the world. Good night.
Okay, so have you started picking up hunting? Is that something at this point?
Yeah.
Now you're like, okay.
Yeah, now literally like these jobs, you know, the hospital job certainly is. I mean, I was fascinated by the human body, fascinated by doing CPR and like seeing somebody not bleeding to death, but bleeding badly to where like the doctor's calling you and going, hey, this guy's bleeding super bad. Like you control the bleeding, you know, I'm working on this. So it was exciting to be a part of that kind of team and to help people and to I did CPR a lot when I was in the hospital because I was able-bodied. So if they had a patient coding and I was in the next room over, they'd be like, hey, send Donnie over and go and do chest compressions. And so it was really cool. I got to really get good at CPR because in that instance, we're doing an angiogram. So we're literally photographing the heart. We're pushing dye through their femoral artery or through their jugular. And so we're literally seeing their heart beating. So the doctor's looking at a screen. He's going, more pressure, Donnie, a little bit faster, right there. Do that. Keep beating his heart. And like they're working on to save this guy. And I'm just literally beating his heart for him. And, so it was really cool to do that stuff and to work with these incredible people. The doctors and nurses were so smart and such badasses. And they would teach me as much as I could absorb in that time. And so that was to pay bills. The biology work was that's what I thought my career was going to be, but really quickly. And I mean, really quickly I saw, I worked with this guy named Frank Harris. He's an awesome biologist. Another guy named Ken Gates. But I saw these guys, they worked themselves in just a short time out of the field. So I want to be a field biologist, but a field biologist is like the punk of biology,
the entry
right?
level,
If you excel, you end up in an office or at a university, which sounds horrible to me. So right away I was like, oh dear God, there's, it's one of those things where you're like, I went to law school, and then you're like, I hate being a lawyer. But it's kind of, because you don't know anything about being a lawyer until that's what I mean in the beginning. We were talking about find what you want to do. Well, rather than be like, I'm going to be a lawyer, you should go work at a law firm for a summer or 2 summers or 3 summers and be like, do you really want to be a lawyer?
Sure.
Because you might hate law.
Yeah, but you're up there now in Alaska. I'm not trying to get out of the field. So, shark, dolphin, salmon,
another killer whale.
Guess I gotta stay.
No, and I knew that something else was coming, but and I was hunting as much as possible. Literally, that it owned me at that point. Right, just going to different places, seeing the bears, seeing the caribou, the northern lights. Literally.
But your perspective on hunting, and even when reading the book, your perspective on hunting is different than just taking an animal, right? I'm a hair from being a non-hunter. I could, if somebody came to me someday and I live for it, but still killing an animal is really difficult. Talk to us about that, because how did that
you're
start?
A biologist, right?
Yeah.
You study animals, and it's an interesting dynamic to think okay, hey, I'm studying to preserve, to grow the population of these animals, right? And then also hunting, and I understand it, but I think just to the general public, and I'm sure you've had these conversations all the time, right?
Yeah, many times.
Why, why hunting but it's great because you are on both sides, right? And you can say, hey, look, from a conservation aspect, we're weeding out, unhealthy or destructive, like bear hunting, which I didn't realize, hunting males actually increases the population. Because did you guys know this? Because they kill the cubs.
Because if they kill the cubs,
I didn't know that.
The sow comes back into heat and he gets the breeder. So it really stems from, it's the same thing, not same thing that people go through, but there's an idea of differential reproductive success, right? Survival of the fittest, right? When you go to the bar, the chicks are dressed to the nines. They want to catch your eye. They're not just, wearing stilettos for their arches. They're they want to catch your eye. And we're in the gym and brushing our teeth and trying to get haircuts to I see your stilettos. You see my pecs. Maybe we should hang out and have sex. And, we have sex because we're primates. We have sex for other reasons other than procreation. But most other animals are I want the cubs on this island to be my cubs.
Right.
So if I run into a sow with your cubs, I'm going to kill them. She's going to come back into heat. I'm going to breed her. She's going to have my cubs. And, that's just a biology thing. And so to stem from your, first and foremost, people, and I don't want to offend anyone, but, we like to think that we are human beings and that then there's people and then there's animals, when in fact we're all animals.
Yes.
We are. And we're seeing this now with the pandemic, right? people are freaking out because our population is losing a couple of individuals, but really all animal populations go through it. Like if we watch 5 wolves kill another wolf from another pack, we're like, ooh, take a camera, photograph that. But now with the pandemic, we're like, someone died, we're all like, this is so tragic. Yeah. Right. But really, it's the ebb and flow of life. Yeah. We're a population just like a population of ants or a population of butterflies, and there's immigration, there's emigration, there's life, and there's death. These are the things. But we have built ourselves into cities. We have hospitals. We have restaurants, grocery stores. So we have awesome opposable thumbs. I flew in today on an airplane. Like we have elevated ourselves. We put ourselves up kind of up above that. So in hunting, the reason I can love wildlife and want to contribute to wildlife, but also take wildlife, is because I'm an animal too, right? There's a predator-prey relationship that I want to belong to. And the more I know about my prey, the more I know about that ecosystem, the more I immerse myself into that ecosystem, the more I can contribute to it. Like I get made fun of a little bit. A couple of people to my face and behind my back, some people call me a wolf, like the wolf lover, right? So most hunters would give their right leg to shoot a wolf. Wolves are very secretive. They're very shy. They're very fast moving. They're very intelligent, cunning. They're very difficult to kill with any weapon. But for whatever reason, I've had 50 opportunities in my life to shoot a wolf in this room. Like me and the wolf are in this room, or me and a pack of wolves are in this room. And I've had multiple instances. I've had wolf tags in my pocket. Like I can legally kill you. But I've never really wanted to, it hasn't flipped that predatory switch for me to kill the wolf. Yeah. Right? I'm not going to do it. I wouldn't kill anything for a pelt. So if I wanted a wolf pelt, I'll just buy one from a trapper that I know. I'll just buy one, and I probably will do that because they're beautiful. But wolves, they need to be managed. They need to be killed. Not everywhere they live, but in a lot of places they live, they literally have to be managed because they're so successful at hunting. They're so successful at killing game in a particular area that, there's areas in Alaska, they literally fly helicopters and shoot them. Like with, literally snipers are mowing down multiple individuals from a pack because they're so successful. That's the only, like you could send hunters in there for an entire year and, they're not going to kill enough wolves to make an impact. But for whatever reason, I've never killed a wolf. And if I'm being honest, and this is why some other hunters make fun of me, like the wolves, and again, they need to be killed. I'm not anti-killing of wolves, but the wolves, the individuals know when an individual doesn't come back to the pack. Okay, so they know when an individual wolf gets killed. They're social animals. They are kind of understanding the biorhythms. They might not know what happened to that wolf if none of the other wolves were around. It might just be a rifle shot or a bow shot. That wolf dies, then the other wolves are like, hey, the white wolf that never came back. And so but their wherewithal is something that I've always appreciated. That is number one. Number two is I've never been in an area where I've paid enough attention to the wolf population to where I was like, I've never had somebody drop me off from an airplane and say, hey, the wolves here, they assume you're not going to see any wolves. When a pilot drops you off or you hike into an area, the assumption is you're not going to see a wolf. So I've never really looked into wolf populations in a particular area to where, like, if I was going in an area and you said, hey, heads up, the wolves here are way overpopulated. They're decimating the caribou. They're decimating the moose. If you get an opportunity, we would sure appreciate it if you took a wolf or two. Then I would probably easily kill a wolf, right? But I've never, like, I got into a pack of wolves in the Arctic several years ago, and like they were all in this room. It was gnarly. Like they literally, like, we were hunting the same moose. That's my interpretation, is that I was stalking a big moose, and then I bumped into this pack, and we were kind of converging together. But then when they saw me, they came over to, like,
check you out.
Yeah, and I said this to I had a wolf biologist kind of yell at me one time because I was like, yeah, they came over to hunt me, and she wrote me a nasty letter. And I don't mean that, but certainly when they were looking at me, they were definitely like, what's this guy? Like they came over, and they were going behind me. They were communicating. They were making these little vocalizations, and And there was a crew. There's 3 of us, the 2 photographers, myself, and so it was a great experience. But my point is, like, I didn't have this bloodlust of like, I need to kill all these wolves. I was sitting there going, I have no idea about, like, what if I shot 2 of these wolves? Because I had 2 wolf tags in my pocket at the time. But what if I shot 2 of these wolves, and then, you know, the pilot came to pick me up later, and I was like, yeah, I shot 2 wolves. He'd be like, oh, we're trying to get that pack established here.
Right.
Because of this and this and
Yeah.
this. I'd be like, oh, shoot, I just shot 2 of the individuals. So I didn't know what was going on.
Yeah.
And truth be told, when the pilot picked me up, I said, you know, I was like, man, like, I saw a bunch of wolves. And he's like, did you kill any? And I said, no. He's like, oh, man, they're really overrun here. They're really hammering the moose. And I was like, oh, shoot.
Dang.
Okay, well, I didn't. But anyway, so... You know, that's kind of the conundrum with being a hunter, you know, and anytime you're the executioner, right? So when you squeeze a trigger, you shoot your bow, your arrow's passing through them, like that animal, just like with Michael Eastern, the Comfort Cry, just like when he squeezed the trigger on that bull, like, you took his life. You took it, Michael. It wasn't me. You took it. And so like, and you know, you guys, it's a book, so you don't get to see it, although we filmed it and we'll come out with pieces of it. But he was... I mean, as soon as he squeezed that trigger, he was crushed with regret. He was angry at himself. Like, he started running with a loaded gun. I had to stop him. Like, he was pissed off, man. He was disappointed in himself, for sure. I don't know if he conveyed that when. But he was disappointed in himself. And then he got up to the bull, and his bull's beautiful, and it's sitting there with its eyes closed. And he's like, looks like it's sleeping. You know, he's like, mother. And his blood is coming out of it, you know. And then he's still super upset, you know, and I gave him time with the bull. And then I started butchering it. It was funny because I took the skin off, cut the head off. I started removing legs. And so now I have meat is laying on a tarp. And he goes, oh, it looks like meat. I go,
You know what? It's
it
funny.
is meat.
I mean, honestly, it's funny, but we would probably have the exact same experience.
Because now it doesn't look like caribou.
Yeah.
Now it looks like a meat cow.
Yeah.
There's the fillet. You know, there's the rump roast. There's like
There's a backstrap.
Yeah, there it is. It's meat.
And back to your other point, though, right? Is there's a purpose? I think the hunters and look, I love Texas, but in Texas, like, hunting becomes a sport, right? It's like high fence ranches.
Certainly can, yes.
And it's like, hey, we're gonna take our company out there. We're gonna go do this. You know, it's just different. Like, to me, the respect that, and a majority of hunters do, and I'm not knocking any of these hunters, right? It's legal, and you know, a lot of these deer are managed for specifically that, but when you are doing it for a purpose, and like you said, I didn't just kill just to kill. Like, I wanted to know why, and I wanted to know that there's a reason. And yes, there's a predator-prey relationship, but there's the food aspect of it. There's a management. But to me, just the knowledge, because, I mean, you see hunters out there, you know, shooting a doe, and it's like, okay, there's really no reason to do that, like, unless you know, or hey, we're trying to clear this out because hey, you know, we got a bunch of bucks that are
right. We need to shoot does.
Exactly. But to go out and hunt and to respect nature, right, and to respect the process of it, and there's reasons behind it. And like you said, we're animals. Like, we're not above the laws of nature, or
no. Take a look around.
Yeah,
like, we're all. I mean, in this pandemic right now, as a baby, it's a sliver, right? Imagine the bubonic plague. Okay, when the bubonic plague rolled into town, about 50% of the people in every town died. So imagine 50% of Dallas going away in a couple weeks.
Not 0.01%.
Yeah, now we have something to talk about, because now in your household of 4, 2 of you have to go away. Statistically. So that is something to think about. And when you think about your own mortality in that regard, like, I think we feel robbed as human beings. Like, wait a minute, if we have a toothache, we go to the dentist. If we break our toe, we go to the doctor. If I need to get to Dallas, I get on an airplane. If I want to eat a steak for lunch, there's a place within 5 miles here that I can go eat a steak. And so that's the whole book with Michael, you know, and when I did the interview with Michael with Men's Health Magazine, you know, he's asked me all these questions of kind of the why, and I was like, well, you know, I don't really know. And I was like, when it's harder, it's better, you know, and seeing these animals, like, rather than just going on an elk hunt to get an elk rack and an elk hide. Like it's really interesting to find out what the mountain range is doing. Kind of watch these biorhythms of this mountain range. Yes, we're hunting elk, but we're also looking at, I'm sitting there at 10,000 feet with my bow in my hands, and I had red fletchings on my arrows, and I'm sitting there with Michael talking with him, and a hummingbird comes in and lands on my arrows, and him and I are just sitting here looking at this hummingbird on the arrows, and it takes off, and he looks at me, and I was like, yeah, that's why, man.
Yeah.
Like, that is.
Yeah. What grabbed me in reading Michael Easter's book is the fact that the vulnerability, like how vulnerable you guys were, not just to the weather, because the weather was something that you had to manage.
Yeah.
Right. You guys did a great job within the book of painting that picture. Like it put me there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Although I was comfortable in my own bed, but it puts you there, and it gives you a perspective of you're dealing with the weather, but just the vulnerability of maybe it's a grizzly.
Oh yeah.
That comes through camp, or talk to us about that part of it, because there's a lot of people that don't have never been in an experience where a life and death experience, and that's what you've been through.
Yeah, I mean it's being put in a position of you're literally at the mercy. I mean, even we were joking about it, but even driving here, right from the airport, like I'm driving, paying zero attention to the speed limit, zero attention for the most part of what lane I'm in, other than I'm in between the other cars. But I literally drove the whole way here with my eyes looking at the sky. And it was really funny because I would stop at, and I'm not bragging, but I would stop at stoplights and I'd look at the cars around me. No one was looking at the sky. People were looking at their phones. People were just sitting in their cars. And I'm like, I'm seeing multiple vortices of rotation going on right now above me. So I'm making my plan. I'm like, there's an overpass. Okay, so I would get out of my truck. I'm jumping over this railing. I'm running up under this overpass, or I'm speeding. I'm going to go. Can I go through this ditch without hanging up my frame in my truck? I'm literally making these assessments while I'm driving here to the studio in Dallas, Texas. And so it's kind of that. Like when we're in these situations of weather or being in a small, we fly in, people laugh, but Michael was terrified. But the airplanes we fly in are made out of tape. They're literally made out of duct tape, right?
That's crazy. That was crazy.
It's an engine. It's two guys. So if something happens to the pilot, like you're done. Like there aren't even controls for you. Like the controls. So he sits, the pilot sits, his seat comes right up between your legs. Your knees go on either side of the pilot in front of you.
Butts to nuts.
Yep. And it's just the windows are right here. The whole thing's a window. And then the wings, the whole fuselage is made out of like a fancy duct tape. Because they can take off anywhere. So you're sitting in there, or you have weather, or you have a bear that charges. You kind of just have to accept the circumstance, right? You prepare your body and your mind like, oh shit, here comes a bear. Like, oh, hey bear, hey bear, hey bear, hey bear. And hope she stops. Statistically, she's probably going to stop. Statistically, if she doesn't stop, you're probably going to live. Our skulls are really too big for a bear to grab a hold and puncture your skull, which is kind of what they're looking for. So you guys know, if you pay attention at all, like grizzly attacks, a lot of guys get scalped. The bears are biting their head, and when they're trying to crush their skull, their teeth slide up the skull and rip all their skin and hair off, right? So what bear victims do is you have your backpack on, and you hope you have your backpack on, and then you cover your medulla oblongata. You're covering your brainstem with your hands interlocked, because if he or she bites the back of your neck, you're done.
Yeah,
right? So she's going to give you a little shake, and it's lights out.
Yeah.
And so you are just preparing your mind for this, fuzzy tractor that's going to run into you, or the airplane crash, when you're sitting there and the airplane's going, or a couple of times we've been on the sides of mountains and we're going to take off, and they had to come pick us up emergently because the wind is going to blow 100 tomorrow. It's blowing 40 today. And hey, because of the direction of the wind, we got to take off down mountain instead of up. So like two men in an airplane, and the pilot's like, hey, you're on the radio. And he's like, hey, I'm going to give it everything it has. Like, we're in this together. Like there's no put your tray tables up, stop watching A Quiet Place. No, it's literally dumping the throttle in.
You're not complaining about the Wi-Fi?
No, you're not there. Come on, are you kidding me?
I can't text on the plane right now.
My life's the worst.
So you're literally just bouncing down the runway, and you're literally driving at a hill, right? We've had pilots. We had a pilot one time. He's like, hey, I won't name him, but he's like, hey, we're heavy. We're really heavy. So basically it's like, just giving you a heads up. Like, we're going to drive off this cliff. We're literally driving off this cliff. And then by the time we hit, like, we'll be flying. He's like, I've done it 1,000 times. And this guy was awesome. He's like, don't worry about it. But he's like, I'm just giving you a heads up. Like, we're not going to be leaving the ground before we leave this cliff. Like, all right. But he's like, it's really good moose hunting here.
But it's really good moose hunting. It's real good here.
And it's really good moose hunting here. One of the reasons is because I'm the only one with the nuggets that will land right here and drop you off. So if you guys are in, and we are,
yeah,
they drop us off in a wild place.